Another, how the individual who ended up losing his life, how he came to be located in Toledo. He's actually from North Carolina, and just the circumstances that brought him up to Toledo are, to my experience, bizarre. But that doesn't mean that from a policing standpoint, things weren't done properly. I think when you look at the video and the still photos, you'll know that our officers made the only decision they could make, and as unfortunate as the outcome was, it was in the name of public safety, in my judgment. I know there'll be a process that will verify that, but the video and the photos will be pretty clear in this case. But certainly an unusual set of circumstances that brought this young man up from North Carolina into our city, where a number of unfortunate events unfolded thereafter. So to walk through that, I'm going to introduce Chief Finley.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, good afternoon, everyone. All right, so as the mayor said, we're going to be looking at our shooting that happened on the 7th at 7:50 a.m. in the 3100 block of Airport Highway. And to kind of cover some of the things that the mayor was alluding to about the circumstances surrounding this particular event, just give a little bit of a backstory on the the person that we ended up having to shoot and unfortunately kill. He's originally from North Carolina. He was actually, at some point, lived in South Carolina and ended up being arrested for a robbery while down in South Carolina, but eventually had moved up to North Carolina. He and our reporting person on this one were playing video games online for roughly a year, so that's kind of how they met. Our suspect eventually got kicked out of his house, asked our reporting person if he could come crash with him, come stay with him for a while. So he was like, yeah, we've been knowing each other for about a year playing online games. Sure, come on up. The suspect comes up, ends up staying with him for roughly 24 hours. But during that 24-hour period, our reporting person ended up seeing some red flags. Suspect was armed. Suspect had some paperwork that related to a robbery charge of some sort. Suspect was carrying a bag, which our reporting person said he thought was contained weapons, which, as it turns out, there were other weapons in the bag, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But eventually, he's like, I need to get away from him. I want him removed. We had one incident that occurred the morning of the 7th, around 3:30 in the morning, over at the Circle K on Lewis. Our officers responded to a call there, talked to both the reporting person and our suspect. Eventually, they went separate ways. We ran them. He didn't have any warrants, and so we didn't have anything to take action on at that point. Eventually, our reporting individual is driving around worried about going home, so he ends up calling 911 again and wants what we call a keep the peace, where we kind of respond out and we would help make sure the suspect's not there and or help remove him from his house. We end up meeting him at Scott Park, and during that time, the reporting person says, he's over here on Brookview. I'll show you where he's at. Our officers end up falling over there. A little bit of miscommunication there. Eventually, our officers see that the suspect had left and fled up Airport Highway. And as we'll get into some of our videos, you'll see where our officers end up encountering that suspect again. So a lot of times we'll play the 911 call and play that for you guys. There's several 911 calls. They're very lengthy and they're a little bit convoluted. So we're going to do something a little bit different here. We're going to play a body camera of our interaction with the reporting person over at our Scott Park campus, just to give you a little bit of idea about the backstory of what we were there for. Those 911 calls are available for you. We'll release them to you. It's just instead of trying to play all those here, we'll go and release them to you. So as first things first, our suspect, Zachary Reed, As you know, he's 22 years old. As of here, we don't know his last known address, but we know he came from North Carolina. And in a previous discussion, it appears he may even been living out of his car for a little while. He did have that criminal history of robbery that I've already discussed. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the involved officers in this. This one we have quite a few involved officers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them up here for you, and they're actually on two different slides. So we have 9 officers and 1 sergeant that were involved, and you know our seniority ranges from 12 to 15 years for our officers. So you know you're welcome to zoom in. You guys will all get a copy of this as well, but we'll just go through here. I'm not going to go individually officer by officer. Okay, so here is our interaction with the complainant over at Scott Park when he called for the keep the peace, and we'll go ahead and play this video for you.
Recording.
Good morning.
Okay, I have had a wild past 2 days. Okay, so I have a friend that I met in the game. Okay, buddy. His name's Zachary Reed, his real name is.
Okay.
I let him move in because he said he went homeless. Okay. But I had no clue about the shit he has on him. He has armed robbery, and a bunch of firearm charges. He brought firearms with him to my house. I don't carry guns. I had no clue he had them in my house at all. Until I asked him, he went to go sit down by the show right here. And I said, what is that? But I called him in because I know him by that with the game. And he's like, oh, it's just this. And pulls it out. I said, I said, I don't want no guns in my house. Well then, anyways, he goes and he takes the guns out to his car. And he took the pistol back out to his car. And then he came back in and sat back down. He's like, oh wait bro, he said, I have guns in your closet. I was like, what do you mean you have guns in my closet? He picked up a fucking duffel bag and it clinked. I don't know if that's completely full with guns, but he also said in the back of his car he has an SKS. Okay, another thing he said, because I was just on the phone with him, because I called the cops around 3 at Circle K trying to get him arrested because the shit he was saying to me was not the right shit to say to someone. He was saying basically pretty much that he didn't care, he felt like a god, that he could do anything he wanted, that he had no authority at all. I literally drove out of Toledo after that. I never went home. I took off. Because I was like, I'm not going home, because now at this point my life's in danger. This guy has guns, he's going back to my house. He wants to get his shit out of my house, but if I don't have a police present, then I'm fucked. You know what I mean? If he decides to pull that gun and pull the trigger, he already has armed robbery. You know what I mean?
Does he have a key to get in?
No. He was trying to convince me to go back there and leave a key under the mat, and you know what I mean? And so then he could go to my house and get his shit out. And I said, no, you have armed robbery, you stole it.
Okay, so that's how we started interacting with him that led up directly to our encounter with the suspect over on Airport Highway. So the next couple things we're going to go through is we're going to go through a couple body cameras, we're going to go through some dash cameras, and we'll kind of just lay out the scene for you so you can understand what our officer saw, what we saw, and how it went forward. So this is the crew I mentioned that was over, and he said he just went that way, so they're out there trying to pick him back up on Airport Highway.
Is it him straight ahead? No, I think he's even further.
Two lights on down. We don't know if it was him or not. Next man's up our
Good evening, City 30 on Starched Way from Fort Q, inbound airport.
Here. It crashed.
Is that him there?
Yeah.
That's what?
Hey, show me your hands! Show me your hands! Show me your hands! Show me your hands!
In front of the bar court, here's when we close.
Show me your hands! Put your hands on the steering wheel now! Do it now and I'll help you! Put your hands on the steering wheel now! and I'll help you. Zach, put your hands on the steering wheel now. Do it now, buddy. Do it now. Hands on the steering wheel now. Put your hand on the steering wheel now.
Okay. So while this crew gets there and they're interacting with him, we obviously have several more units responding. We're going to go through some body camera footage. This whole incident here, where from their initial response to the time we have to engage the suspect, is roughly 30 minutes. Our officers were negotiating with him for about 30 minutes. The next body camera you're going to see is from Officer Woody. He is one of our negotiators. So our Officer Flores has done some fancy work for you here on this particular video, and you're going to see picture-in-pictures on this, body camera and dash cam, because it helps paint a better view and for the voice. So you'll hear us trying to talk to him, trying to get him to come out peacefully. It's really hard to hear sometimes, but he is making a lot of threats about how he's going to die, and tell my family I love him, all that kind of stuff. And we believe he even makes a phone call to his dad during this at some point. So we'll go ahead and play this video here.
Come on, Zach. Come on, buddy.
That's just our other negotiator. That's all that is. That's our other negotiator. That's our other negotiator. That's our other negotiator.
Do we know what he's got?
We don't. Zach, put both your hands up for me.
He's not showing his right hand.
Keep both your hands up for me, all right? Zach,
Come on, bud.
Zach, both your hands up for me. Let me talk to you. It's gonna be all right. Zach, look at me. I'm right here. I'm right in front of you. Yes. I want you to put both your hands up for me, okay? Let us get you some help. That's my other negotiator. You hear Lieutenant? Yeah. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Zach, look at me. This is what I want you to do. Put both your hands up for me. Okay, I'm ready. Zach.
Zachary.
We don't know what he's got, right?
No.
We are totally has a bunch of weapons.
Zach! What's going on? Okay. Well, you can make, life is all about mistakes. All right, you can come back from this.
Okay, so obviously when we're talking to him for 30 minutes, it's a lot of the same thing over and over again, and you will have all those complete body cameras and dash cams available to you. But in the essence of time, we're going to move on to the moment where all the talks break down, and Mr. Reed decides that he's going to engage our officers by coming out of the vehicle with a weapon. So that's the next video you're going to see right here.
Think about it. Keep talking. We're not going to let you walk, okay?
6 is ready.
We can't let you walk. All right? But it's a lot of difference between a misdemeanor. Huh? Why can't you do that?
He doesn't tell people to switch over.
But you can tell him. Zach.
720 shots fired. Give me that shield.
You grab the shield.
Zach! Guns down, guns down. Got it?
Okay. Because this was a what we call kind of a barricaded style situation. A lot of times we have barricaded suspects in their houses, but this one happened to be barricaded inside his car. So we're spending some time negotiating with him, talking to him. So we had fire stage relatively close on scene. We called for fire at that point. They ended up coming up in a matter of seconds and assessed him and took him to UTMC, where unfortunately he later passed from his injuries. This next shot here is a still photo where you can clearly see his weapon. At this point, we believe we've confirmed that he did not fire his weapon. There was a lot of confusion that day. Anytime officers are involved in a situation this, when there's so many other officers around you and those rounds are being fired, you know, that kind of fog, some people think they did something that they didn't do, and until we start watching videos and confirming. But the officers, if you see when you start watching some of the body cameras, they started pointing out, oh yeah, he shot, and this is where he shot. It turns out some of the holes in our car, unfortunately, were from our officers as they started to duck and were in the process of shooting. There were 59 rounds fired from the 9 officers and 1 sergeant, so 10 total officers fired a total of 59 rounds. There's a variety of different weapons that were used in this event, from our rifles, our shotgun, our 9mm and 40 caliber pistols, but that is the total. This is the weapon that Mr. Reed had. It's a Glock 42 380. There were 5 rounds in the magazine, and when we recovered it. So that is overall the kind of the scene that we encountered, how the officers responded, what it looked like. And so, as I say a lot of times on this, we literally just finished interviewing all of our officers, and one may still be going on right now. Our sergeant may still be being interviewed right now. So we're still very early in the investigation on this. But as the mayor said, this is something that we have committed to doing to make sure that we're being as transparent as we possibly can as a police department, make sure that we're getting information out to our community. As this investigation continues, there's still a lot of more legwork we need to do as detectives, processing, you know, cars and stuff like that. You know, there always could be some things that change or minor variations from what we think happened right now. But this is the incident as we know it to date. So at that point, I'll take any questions you might have.
So when do you think he arrived in the city of Toledo?
So within 1 to 2 days prior to this, we think is when he came up.
So
The 5th is set, somewhere between the 5th and the 6th.
And to the best of your knowledge, the only connection he has is a guy he's playing video games with?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Seems kind of strange for an incident like this. That it clearly doesn't change your procedure, but when you investigate things like that, how does that play into this? Is this just an anomaly?
You know, I'm not in that world of online gaming like that, so I know there are a lot of online relationships that start. I would say this is an anomaly for us, but it's also maybe a warning for our community that, you know, just because you talk to somebody online or meet somebody online doesn't mean necessarily know who they are. And so I think you need to tread carefully and be careful about who you invite into your house.
And so he was facing charges in North or South Carolina?
He had already faced charges. We believe he was on probation, and we're still confirming some of that stuff.
Because you said when you ran him, he didn't have any warrants. So that
No,
was
he did not have any open warrants at the time.
Let's go over the shots again. 59 rounds you said fired?
Yes, sir.
And how many people fired them?
There were a total of 10 officers, 9 patrolmen, and 1 sergeant.
Okay. And you said some of the vehicles were hit by officer shots. Walk me through that scenario and what you believe happened.
So a lot of our officers, as you see when they pulled up to the scene there, a lot of times they'll take and they'll put the door open and they'll take aim through the door, trying to use the door a little bit. Some of them had shields up onto the windshields and on the door frames to try to protect them, and so they're trying to shoot through that opening. Obviously, when he came out, when he did, you have 30 minutes of, let's just call it a little bit of a lull, right? I mean, there's only so much you can stay on guard as a police officer, and so I think some of the officers were surprised when he moved as quick as he did coming out of there. So their reaction and two reactions. They're going to engage because they see the threat, but they're also trying to find themselves cover because they see you're looking down the barrel of a gun. And so a lot of the natural reactions were ducking, coming down. So we think as that happened, they hit some of our spotlights, some of the doors that they were behind. I think one round, we haven't finalized all of our cars yet, but I think one round even went through our windshield.
To that end, we reported that there was a minor injury sustained by one of the officers. What was that minor injury, and which one of them was injured?
So Officer Missler was injured, and at the time when I was out on scene early on this, she was unsure, and the officers were certain that this gentleman fired at him. As we processed the scene and looked at the videos, we confirmed it wasn't. So she was unsure if she was hit by something, flying glass, shrapnel, or if she was actually shot. Because at one point, during her video, she said, "Did I get hit?" So the best of our ability, we can't exactly tell what happened. We've made some best educated guesses that maybe as she went to take cover, she might have caught part of the door frame or something like that, because she ended up with a cut on the top of her head. So very minor blood, unknown of what was happening at that time. We transported her over to Toledo Hospital to have her checked out and just to make sure.
Okay. Do you think there's any chance she was hit by one of the officer's bullets?
No, I do not believe that's true.
So clear some things up for me. When the body cam starts, we see him already at the Burnport Apartments. Talk to me about the things leading up to that. So when did he first realize that TPD was following him, trying to talk with him, and how did that all lead up to a chase, and how did that come to a close over in Burnport?
Yeah, so the reporting individual said he's over there at Brookview right now. So the officers followed him over there. He was going to drive by and point him out. They ended up driving both by because the officers never saw him point out. At that point, he stops. He said, "You guys just passed him." So the officers see this car come out onto Airport Highway and head towards Burnport. So they jumped out to try to catch up to him. They never really got in pursuit with him because they didn't know where he was at. But they were trying to catch up, and that's when they used their lights and sirens. And eventually, one of the officers spotted him up against, the parking block there inside. That's the little strip mall, the old strip mall there.
So he had already crashed at
Yes,
that point.
yep.
Was he under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
Not that we know of yet. We have not done the autopsy yet, so we wouldn't have any toxicology or anything for quite a while.
Let's talk about the rounds of fired. Just to be clear, how many hit Toledo police vehicles, do you think? How many rounds?
I don't even want to guess at this point. When I was out there, I saw probably 3 or 4 different pieces of our cars that were hit, but I didn't inspect all our vehicles. I was more worried about Officer Missler and taking care of some of the other things.
Okay. Some residents say that some of the bullets hit their homes and their structures. What do you know about that?
Yeah, so we had detectives look at it, and we are still investigating it, but at this point, we believe there's only one new round that hit, or not necessarily round, but only one new building hit was 827 Burnport. I know there was several other bullet holes in that building, but we believe a lot of those are prior, but we have not finalized that investigation. But that's our initial conclusion. But right now, we think just one building.
So it's believed, at this point, you think one building was hit with one singular round?
I don't know how many rounds. I just know one building was hit.
Okay. Will you be able to determine for sure how many?
Yes, we will. That's part of our investigation we're still doing.
I know neighbors were concerned about that. Obviously, the incident was involving the car, but the buildings get hit.
Yeah.
What sort of concern do you have that any person in the background, any bystander, could have been hit by some gunfire as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that is one of my concerns I have at every single one of our shootings. And it's, it's unfortunate. On this one, I'm gonna guess we probably had a ricochet off one of the cars is probably why there's one that went out that far. But every time our officer engages somebody, a suspect with a weapon or a suspect that shoots at us, we're inside of a city, and there's houses, people, cars. So that's always a part of the backdrop. It's something that we're always stressing to our officers. Just because you're justified to shoot, you still have to be cognizant of the backdrop. You have to be cognizant of the people around you, and you have to be accountable for those rounds that are fired. Because just because you are justified in shooting, It doesn't mean that once you fire that round, it's fire and forget, right? So those are conversations that we continually have as part of our continual training and how we're trying to improve our training. Just yesterday during our ComStat meeting with all our commanders, we had a very long discussion about scene control and making sure that we're using good tactics and putting our officers in good situations, and making sure that we're using the correct number of officers for the incident, and making sure that we are telling our officers where they should and shouldn't be. But those are all things that come into play. This one we had a little bit of time. A lot of them, like take the Earl Street, they turn the corner and there he is with a gun, right? So every incident is different, and unfortunately, it's not an easy job. It's not an easy job for our officers. It's not an easy job for our command officers. But that is what they signed up for, and that's what we're paying them for. So we're constantly preaching better supervision at these scenes and making sure that we are getting better every time. Now, take that as what it is. I am not saying our officers did anything wrong in this, okay? And we won't know that for a little bit, but my initial belief is our officers acted appropriately. But we have to always train, think about what we're doing, evaluate what we're doing, and debrief what we're doing to find ways that we can do it better in the future.
So will it be your plan to get to the bottom of what round or how many rounds went into the building and where they came from?
Yeah, we'll probably never be able to determine which weapon they came from, but the reality is, yes, we will investigate that building, see how many rounds were in there, and then that'll be a part of our final investigation.
I know these situations are minute to minute, and obviously the officers are only reacting with the time they have, but are there any non-lethal ways to get people out of a vehicle besides just speaking to them? Do we have to rely on having just that communication, hoping they come out? There's no way to pepper ball them or use smoke or anything like that?
So we did have a less lethal weapon on scene. Matter of fact, a less lethal weapon was fired during this incident. It's our 40 millimeter, I'm gonna call it a sponge round. And that was up in case he came out and we had to take him down that way. Vehicles are an interesting dynamic. Whereas for a house, when you're barricading the house, there's ways for us to make entries and do that. Do we have a tactical approach to try to get somebody out of a vehicle? Yes, we do. At this point, we weren't to that. Our SWAT team was called to the scene. They were in the process of responding to the scene. But we weren't ready to make a tactical approach to an armed suspect in a vehicle yet. So at that point, we're just trying to talk him out. Eventually, if he never comes out and he's still armed, yes, we have tactics to try to remove him from the vehicle. But vehicles are very tough to do.
What's your number one takeaway as you've absorbed this in the last 3 or 4 days? What have you taken away that you can tell your men and women on the street?
So what I've taken away from this is that, it's a dangerous job. It's something, and I talked to the officers afterwards. Nobody wants to be involved in a deadly force shooting, all right? And it's not necessarily what you sign up for, but it is part of the job. So we talked a lot about, mental health, making sure if you're talking to somebody, we have resources available to you. Our wellness unit is debriefing you. Take advantage of all those resources and make sure you're in a good place. It's also, I take away from the scene, how we need to debrief this and talk about ways to get better. I think we can do this better. Doesn't mean it's wrong. I'm just saying I think we can be better. And a lot of that has to do with our supervisors and having conversations with them, our continuing training that we've started implementing already. But unfortunately, with training cycles for us, our hands-on training are usually a year in advance planned, or we do a full year because of our mandates from OPADA. But for next year, we already have a lot of training planned for multiple officers to address that contagious fire phenomenon and make sure that we're firing for good reasons, and that we're putting our officers in a place that we're not necessarily exposing them to more risk. making sure that they have cover, making sure that when they decide to fire, they're not just firing because they're hearing the fire, right? They're firing because they observe the threat, and they're the only ones to either A, stop the threat to protect themselves, protect the life of a fellow officer or a citizen.
What do you think they could have done better? What would you like to see better from that situation?
On this one, I mean, for me, it's easy to, if you want to call it Monday morning quarterback or whatever, but the fact of the matter is we have to review these incidents, and we have to talk about them, we have to think about it, and we have to discuss it. And as I said at our ComStat meeting yesterday, we had a very long conversation with all of our lieutenants and above, and about the scene and what we can do better. So for me, I think we need to do a better job of getting our officers back away from the car a little bit. I think they're a little too close, but that's not a dig on the officers that were there, because it's easy for me to say this from this point. That officer, that lieutenant and sergeant, they have so many different things that they're trying to deal with and contend with in an ever-evolving situation. But until we talk about those things and we talk about ways that we can get better, we're never going to get better. And so, you know, as command officers, as police officers, you got to have a little bit of thick skin. You know, my days in SWAT, we did debriefings after every operation we did, and it was gloves off. Everybody points out what everybody else did, and maybe mistakes here or there. I'm not saying there's mistakes here. I'm just saying that is part of the process of learning as a team and getting better as a team, is being able to hold yourselves accountable and hold each other accountable.
Chief, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a two-parter here. First of all, would you call this a suicide by cop?
Yeah, I mean, I would. So not necessarily that this guy was suicidal to start with, or that he had mental health, because I don't know his history. But it is clear he wants us to kill him.
This is becoming a more common phenomena. What can we do to avoid this, or what do you think is causing this? Because we are definitely seeing this increase.
So this one, you know, we've had so many different ones that happen. Sometimes it's mental illness, but this one is somebody that has been involved in crime, was planning more crime. You know, I said I'd talk a little bit more about his bag. You know, not only did he have an AK-47 in there, he had drum magazines for his pistol. He had rounds, just tons of rounds inside this bag, masks, other things that we believe he was intending to go commit robberies with. So now you have somebody that was a criminal, that was doing criminal activities and got cornered by the police. So he saw this as his only out. So it's so hard to, you know, paint a broad brush against all these situations, because every one of them is so different. Some are mental, some are different reasons. So why it's happening, I don't know. We have seen an increase in officer-involved shootings, people pulling weapons on our officers, shooting at our officers, and a lot of that comes, you know, post-2020. So there has been an uptick in that, and you know, some of that is our officers are out there doing really good work. Our officers are being aggressive in trying to get guns and people that are causing harm to our community off the streets. So they're interacting more and more with individuals that are dangerous.
There was which of the negotiators was it who specifically said, life is all about mistakes, you can come back from this? I wasn't clear to me who said that.
I believe that was Officer Woody.
Okay, because there were two that you mentioned, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure at which point who was speaking.
I believe that one was Officer Woody.
Okay.
If there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and conclude this.
All right, thank you guys.
Are those 10 still off duty, or are they on duty? What's going on with those?
They were going through their interviews today, so they'll be released back to duty tomorrow.
Okay.
Was I wrong about the 72-hour?
So,
Or is it just with the command officer?
well, it's from it turns out that